Hey, hello everyone and welcome to Extreme Graphics Tech. My name is Angelo. As you know, we've been talking about this in the channel and there are many YouTube channels saying it. And apparently if you have an 8GB of VRAM GPU, you need to throw it in the trash and run to buy a new card because that card is no longer going to let you play any games or from 2023 or in the future. So you have an 8GB VRAM card, apparently is not worth it anymore, and you should consider yourself a peasant. Okay, so when I was hearing those news and I'm being so worried, I've been testing. The thing is that after that I decided to let's try the lowest VRAM GPU from the RTX family, which is the RTX 2060 6GB. Remember that even though the 3050 is slower than the 2060, is an 8GB of VRAM card. So I thought, okay, let's see, because 8GB is no longer enough, right? So 6GB is probably going to be pure, you know, a trash. Is going to be very bad. So I wanted to try, and these are my results. So the first game I'm going to try is one that is very well known for using a lot of VRAM. In this case, is Hogwarts Legacy. And as you're seeing, I have sped up the footage like by 300% or so, just to show a more bigger array and in a short amount of time. So you can see more of the game happening. As you can see here, I'm going as fast as possible, just trying to trigger some texture loading or something. We see the geometry loading, but that's because of the settings, because we're using medium. But even so, I have activated ray tracing, and you can see here that most of the stutterings that you call it is because of loading data from the hard drive, not necessarily because of a lack of VRAM. In fact, we are not even close to 6GB of VRAM. We are using only 6, while only 4 of those are used by the game, and we're using 1440p DLSS balanced and with medium ray tracing. As you can see, the game is still behaving quite good and is running quite okay, all things considered. And remember that ray tracing is very expensive and CPU dependent on this game, okay? So these are the settings I set up for Resident Evil 4, and the reason I'm showing the settings here is because it's more complex than what other games you just put 2 settings and I can explain that on top, but here I couldn't, so I wanted you to see exactly what I set up. And as you can see, I was able to play this game even with ray tracing, even when they said you shouldn't activate ray tracing with if you had less than 12GB of VRAM. You can see I am using ray tracing in this game with only 6GB of VRAM, and the game still looks phenomenal. As you can see here, this is one of the more heavy areas of the game with lots of enemy, with lots of textures, open spaces, and the game is running flawless. You can see those 60 FPS over there, no problem whatsoever, and I am not using any reconstruction technique because I don't like the FSR or the interlace implementation in this game. So while you see the footage and you see how well the game runs, I just want to say that I'm not saying that you need to buy a 6GB card or an 8GB card, or I am trying to excuse Nvidia for putting so little RAM. I am one that think that the more RAM the better. What I'm trying to show you with this is that if you have these cards already, you can still enjoy them for all the games that are being released right now, and probably the games that are going to be released in the future. If you know what settings to change, you are not going to have like a visually disparate or you know, very different experience graphically speaking, because this game even in this configuration looks phenomenal. When we go back to another game like Returnal, this is a game that was only released on PlayStation 5, so I don't know if I am going to call this only a next-gen game, but it's a game that there is no PlayStation 4 version of it. And so you can see here we're running 1440p DLSS quality on high with ray tracing medium. Okay, there are going to be some stutters here and there, and most of them are related to the ray tracing path. But the reason I'm using ray tracing is just to show you and force that even using a feature like this that is very VRAM intensive, you can still have a very good experience. And also the fact that, you know, if you had a 2060, I don't agree when people say you can enjoy ray tracing unless you have a 4090 or so, because it's not true. You can have a very good experience, and this, from my point of view, we are having a very good experience in Returnal. And you know, you can always lower other settings, maybe lower the resolution. At the end of the day, the 2060 from the is not necessarily any longer at the 1440p car. I think it was born as a 1080p car, and it's still probably the resolution, but because we are using the DLSS, then you know, we can enjoy a little bit of a better resolution quality in this case. The case of Spider-Man Miles Morales, that is the more heavy of the two games because it has more ray tracing features. We are still using ray tracing in this game too, and on high with also high quality settings, and on 1440p using the DLSS with the dynamic resolution scaling. And you can see the game doesn't loses a bit. It's, you know, as steady as a rock, and you can enjoy a very good experience with this game, no problem whatsoever. So I think that's a win if you ask me, because I don't really understand when you know, they say, oh, you cannot enjoy ray tracing or anything like that, or you need like 12 gigabytes of VRAM. So, as you can see here, you can still enjoy your car if you have it, maybe even until RTX 5000 comes out, or even more. I'm not sure what to say, but you know, the 2060 is a very capable card, and it also will depend a lot of what you play, because if you are not playing like the latest AAA games all the time, you can still enjoy lots of like emulation, lots of indie games, or even, you know, AA games, just a lower settings. But here I think we are having a very good experience, and this is still a 6 gigabytes of VRAM card. And as you can see the usage on the top left, you can see that we're having no issues with the 2060. All you need to do is, you know, set the expectations right. I could have gone probably higher with resolution or performance if it wasn't because I wanted to activate ray tracing. Now, look at this. This game is a cyberpunk with the overdrive mode. And yes, I know I'm using DLSS Ultra Performance. I also using medium textures in order to lower the VRAM usage. But come on, I think even DLSS Ultra Performance looks quite good, all things considered, for an RTX 2060. Many people were saying on my last video, oh, it looks like Vaseline, is too, you know, blurry. I don't think so. I don't think it's that blurry. I think, you know, it's still very playable, very okay, at least in terms of visual, from my point of view. It's like everyone needs now very raw 4K pixel, and I don't think that's the case. I think this looks very playable, and you know, if you want to enjoy overdrive mode, why not? I know the frame rate is not very stable, maybe, you know, doing a little bit of overclock to stabilize or anything, but you can still enjoy a 30 FPS experience, which I think is phenomenal. And I know there is a mod that will lower the settings a little bit more, so maybe you don't even need to use DLSS Ultra Performance to get, you know, those 30 FPS. So there you are, you know, 6 gigabytes is still running fine. I find no problems whatsoever. I don't know, maybe it's me that is just enjoy game for what they are. And this is the last game I'm going to test, and it's The Last of Us, because we know what the situation is with this game. And both games have the exact same settings, which is the medium presets, both screens I mean, except that the left, besides having the medium settings, I set the environmental textures and the character textures to high. And the reason for doing that is to up the VRAM consumption. And why I wanted to do that is just to show you that even though when and how the VRAM, you know, issue comes and is triggered itself. Like, okay, so what happens when I'm using more? And as you can see, the left side is using more GPU for some reason and less VRAM. I don't know why that's the case, but that's the case on the left. However, on the right, you see that we are using less GPU but more VRAM. Maybe it's because it can fit a little bit more because the textures are on media. I'm not sure. And the visual quality is not that big, at least from afar. We know what happens when you get close, but still the experience is quite okay. However, you can see that the right side is a lot more stable than the left side. You can see that you can get even a game like The Last of Us to play perfectly fine, and this is a 1440p DLSS balance without any issues whatsoever. Now you're going to see how the VRAM triggers a lot of stuttering on the left side in a second. When the explosion happens, look at there, start the stuttering, and the game doesn't recover immediately. I think this is because of a bandwidth issue. There has to be some texture streaming or something, and because of, you know, transparencies and explosion use a lot of bandwidth, there is not enough to write back some data. I can't say for sure, but you can see that the difference only because of the texture is quite high. So in that case, you can see that you can adapt a game to even run on a 6 GB VRAM card like the RTX 2060 and still have a great experience. So after you saw the results, it's clear that you can still play with a 2060 6 GB card, no problems whatsoever, as long as you know what to touch and how to lower the quality of the settings without having to sacrifice too much in the way of visual quality. We were even able to play the games with ray tracing, even if it wasn't like the, you know, most amazing ray tracing. You can still activate it and use it even with a 6 GB of VRAM card and a 2060. So we have to remember something. This is a card that came out in 2018, so it's about 5 years old. We know in the PC space things move very fast. But even if you have a 2060 right now, not only can you still play all the games that came before, all the games that came now, but I think you will still be able to play all the games in the next 2 years or the next year, so until the RTX 5000 series comes, and then the RTX 40 is series is cheaper and you can buy one. My point is that this whole VRAM thing has gone too far, and I'm not saying that I justify Nvidia. That's not it. Yes, 3070 sucks that it doesn't have more VRAM, but I don't think it's dead or it's not future proof in the sense that you don't need to play at ultra. I also think that the, you know, games coming out in the future anyway, the RTX 3070, even if you play in ultra, it wouldn't have enough power to move them the way you want it, at least not at 4K. You have to go to 1440p or starting using the LSS or other things. We were able to use ray tracing on this card and play all of the games without any issues, at least trying to achieve 60 FPS on most of them. And as I said, this is a card that, from my point of view, you know, if you have it and it's still, you know, running it, you don't need to change it, like go running and spend $800, $700, $600 just to get a new car. So we have proof here that you can still have a very good experience with just 6 GB of VRAM. So if you have one and you're saving for a new one, yeah, we'll save for another year and just jump to the RTX 5000 or whatever AMD puts out. And hopefully they will have more VRAM by the time and not so little as they have now. Am I saying that Nvidia is doing good by putting only 8 GB like in a 4060 Ti, for example? Absolutely not. What I'm trying to say is, if you already have a low VRAM GPU, that you can still enjoy years of entertainment as long as you change the settings in an intelligent way that will allow you to play with no stuttering, ray tracing, no issues, okay? Not ultra, but it's not going to cost you extra $600, okay? So you can still enjoy that card for a little bit. So yeah, I wanted to test this lowest RTX VRAM card just to have an idea. Well, as you see, I'm still pleasantly surprised. I have a fun, you know, this is, I love this car. I love sort of low-end car. This is not low-end, this is more middle, but I mean, it's the lowest end of RTX at the time. And I love them because, you know, they give you the best bang for your buck, and you're always trying to optimize and squeeze every frame you can from them. And I always find that very entertaining, like finding that point where you are happy with the results on the card that didn't cost you, a lung and an eye. So yeah, that's my results. Hope you like it and see you on the next video.